Warning: this video will present information that can pose a mild risk if known about. However, nothing in this video is substantially dangerous, especially if viewed at a rational level. It will also present visual information that I do not encourage acting upon in any way. When it comes to information, we generally perceive it as good, and that makes sense. Knowledge allows you to understand more about the world and generally make better decisions. However, not all knowledge is equally valuable, and some is better not said. In this video, I want to highlight such information that isn't particularly harmful, mainly because I find it very interesting that there are ideas you can have which harm you by knowing them. First, however, we need to talk about a more popular concept: info hazards. An info hazard is a piece of information that could be harmful if acted upon. Think of it like this: a nuclear bomb is a hazard, and the method to create one is an info hazard. Info hazards themselves will rarely be harmful, but they allow bad actors to become a hazard. Now, there are a lot of info hazards in the world: a recipe for a dangerous drug, nuclear launch codes, and so on. Funnily enough, this also means that knowing what info hazards are is in and of itself an info hazard, as it makes you more likely to seek out other info hazards. However, as this is not the main topic of today's video, I don't want to spend too much time here. But I do want to show you an info hazard that could have a serious risk if you take it lightly. Because of that, I want you to be careful with the next image I present. If you're scared, you may close your eyes. Alright, here it is. This image shows a method in which you can move your hand right now in order to break your thumb ligament. The reason I gave this as an example is because of just how easy it is to do, and how it isn't actually that harmful. From what I was able to find, unless you put in a lot of force, this will not cause a major injury, similarly to how banging your head against a wall will hurt, but will only be really harmful if done with a lot of force. Still, I haven't tried it seriously, and neither should you. So, now that we are familiar with info hazards, we can move on to cognitohazards. But there is one thing you should probably know beforehand. The term cognitohazard was popularized by the SCP Wiki, a website that describes a fictional universe, and it usually refers to things that are dangerous when perceived. I find this to be a somewhat dumb definition, because that would mean that the sun is a cognitohazard if you look at it, which isn't that interesting. Instead, for this video, I will use a different definition. Cognitohazards are ideas that are harmful just to know. Differently from info hazards, like the image I showed before, it doesn't matter what you do with the knowledge. You are in a more negative state as long as you know about it. Now, in reality, this video doesn't have a single example of an actual cognitohazard, and nothing in here will cause you substantial harm, just mild displeasure at worst. This is because it would be rather unethical to actually give you such information, and because, well, I haven't been able to find any myself. However, that doesn't mean we can't talk about information that is bad to know. So let's start with something that won't cause you any trouble: spoilers. If I were to say that X dies in Y film, this would likely cause you some displeasure, as now that piece of entertainment may be ruined for you. Similarly to this, explaining how a magic trick is done is also a potential cognitohazard, as that knowledge will ruin that aspect of a trick. Just knowing the information, regardless of what is done with it, leads to a more negative outcome. While these are fine, they are also context specific. If you have watched the film, or if you don't care to watch the film, a spoiler won't have any effect on you. Same with the magic trick. So let's move up a little. Imagine a dystopia where the government is able to monitor the thoughts of everyone. Let's also presume that the government cares to stop any form of rebellion, and so, if someone thinks about the idea of rebellion, they are killed. In such a reality, the idea of rebellion is an actual cognitohazard. However, in our reality, such an idea doesn't exist, at least as long as the government can't monitor our thoughts. Some ideas do come worryingly close though. I won't mention what exactly, but there is something that the Chinese government really hates to see. However, this type of cognitohazard doesn't yet exist, so let's move on to my most potent, yet still mostly harmless, examples in this video. Ones that will affect you, the viewer, right now. The most benign example is one that is somewhat popular, and I think it would be funny if you thought of it yourself. After all, I'll say it anyway, and once that happens, you'll be guaranteed to lose. I'm of course talking about the game, a mind game where you lose if you think about it, and you try to play as long as possible. Even if it is harmless, I like this example quite a lot because of how powerful it is. By its rules, you can never win the game, and so you will always be in a more negative state if you know about it. Not that it matters much, of course. Now let's do a more effective version. You are now breathing manually. You are now blinking manually. You are now okay, I'll stop. As you may have noticed, you are now doing the things I mentioned consciously. While your body normally does such functions automatically to let your mind rest a bit, it's not optimal to take away conscious control, so you are able to swap if you think about it. A funny side effect to that is that in order to go back to being automatic, you need to forget about the task, yet the more you want to stop it manually, the more you'll keep thinking about it. These two are decent examples, but that last sentence shows a clear flaw. They can be ignored if forgotten, meaning you can simply continue living as usual. However, this is not the case for my final example, Roko's basilisk. Suppose that in the future, a super intelligent AI will eventually get built in order to maximize human happiness. Naturally, the earlier it gets built, the more humans it can help, and so, in order to incentivize people alive right now to help build it, it says that if you don't start working towards building it, it will torture you when it gets built. Therefore, if you know about it, you will either have to spend your life helping to build it, or you will get tortured. However, if you don't know about it, then the AI will have no reason to torture you. Just by knowing about its potential existence, you are now doomed. Well, no, obviously not. I wouldn't tell you about this if that was true. In reality, Roko's basilisk cannot exist, at least in the way it is described. There are arguments against it, such as information not being able to travel backwards in time, or the AI only threatening us to not waste resources, but I think there is a nice way to wrap them all up into one method to defeat this thought experiment. The main issue of Roko's basilisk comes from the idea ending when the AI is created. Keep in mind that the purpose of the idea is to incentivize people to either work towards it or be punished. So, when the AI gets built, no one else can get harmed because the goal was achieved. However, because the AI comes into existence at the same moment, it can only then begin to do anything and to decide who gets punished. Since the AI wants to help people, it has no reason to torture anyone. The purpose of the idea was to scare anyone into helping, but when the AI gets built, the idea ends and there is no incentive to torture anyone. Basically, the idea of Roko's basilisk, which hurts people, and the AI itself, which helps people, always exist at a different time, and the AI, the one that is supposed to punish people, has no incentive to do so. And with that, Roko's basilisk is defeated, and my final example is presented. For this video, I asked quite a few people of their opinions, yet I was unable to find anything truly harmful, for better or for worse. If you have such an idea, however, you can describe it in the poll you can find in the comments. I did read about this one example where by modifying Roko's basilisk,